Okay, picture this, a super high-tech robotics lab. They had a little insect problem, so they cleaned the entire place, top to bottom. Every single bug is gone. Or so they think. In the dead of night, one of the robots just starts going haywire. And the cause? It turns out one tiny little bug was left behind. It crawled right into the main processor and started corrupting everything from the inside out.
So, you've probably guessed that story isn't really about a robot. It's about us. We all have these bugs, these small, maybe even forgotten moments from our past that have a huge impact on our brain, our body, our entire life. They are the hidden reason why you might be painfully shy, or why someone else is so quick to get angry. It's why we struggle with big decisions, overthink tiny ones, or get totally consumed worrying about what other people think. And these are all problems that might not even exist if it weren't for that one single bug that got stuck in our heads a long, long time ago.
Now, the technical name for this bug is childhood trauma. And I know, that word sounds really heavy. You might be thinking, whoa, that's not me. But before you tune out, it's so important to understand this doesn't always mean one big, catastrophic event. A lot of the time, it's just a collection of smaller, negative experiences that we've consciously forgotten about. But our subconscious, oh, it remembers, and it's been holding on to them, quietly shaping the person we are today.
And here's the thing. This isn't some rare issue. It's practically universal. According to the World Health Organization, a staggering 70% of people will experience at least one traumatic event. And get this, another huge study found that 64% of adults had at least one form of childhood trauma. But here's the most shocking part of it all. The vast majority of people have absolutely no idea these old experiences are still running the show.
It's like Sigmund Freud said, our past is always present. The things that happen to us as kids, even stuff we can't consciously remember, are constantly pulling the strings on our reactions, our confidence, and our social skills today. Our brain remembers it all, even when we don't.
Let me give you another way to think about it. These past negative experiences, they're like a handbrake that's pulled up on your life. You can have the most powerful engine in the world, the greatest potential, the biggest dreams you can imagine. But if that handbrake is on, you're just not going to go anywhere fast. So in this explainer, we're going to figure out what those handbrakes are. And then, we're going to show you how to finally release them.
All right, let's start by unpacking 3 of the most common wounds we carry from our past. These are the kinds of experiences that leave the deepest marks, often in ways we just don't see. And we're going to start with a case that is, well, it's truly shocking.
So, this is the story of Rhea. She's a bright, talented 15-year-old. One day, she tells her parents her legs feel weak. A week later, she's limping. Within a single month, she can't walk at all and is stuck in a wheelchair. Her doctors ran every test you can imagine, MRIs, nerve studies, you name it, and they found nothing. Absolutely nothing physically wrong. It was only when a neurologist finally talked to her alone that the truth came out. Her classmates had been relentlessly bullying her about her weight and her glasses. The mental weight of it all became so heavy that her brain literally translated that emotional pain into a severe physical disability. That is the power of bullying and shaming trauma.
And Rhea's story, as extreme as it sounds, is not some isolated incident. A UNESCO report found that 240 million students all over the world face school bullying every single year. These early experiences, being made fun of, being left out, being shamed, they can literally write the code for our adult personality, leading to things like shyness, insecurity, or even a constant need to control other people.
Now, the second wound often comes from outside the classroom. It's societal pressure. This is the story of Shivam, an engineering student who moved away for college. The academic pressure, the expectations from his family, the intense competition, it just became too much. In a final note, he wrote that he couldn't take the stress anymore, that people had called him useless, and that he'd started to believe it was true.
Shivam's story is just a tragic piece of a much bigger, much more toxic pattern. We're taught from a young age that our worth is tied to numbers, our grades, our salary. But as you can see here, it's actually a combination of pressures. Research shows that massive numbers of young people are affected by body shaming, and then you add in the constant comparison we see on social media. It all mixes together to create this perfect storm for low self-esteem, anxiety, and just chronic stress.
This third wound, it might just be the deepest of all, attachment trauma. There's this fascinating experiment back in 1965 that just illustrates it perfectly. Researchers watched 2 groups of toddlers. The first group, kids who got consistent care and attention from their families, were put in a room with some blocks. And they immediately started playing, totally curious. But the second group, kids from orphanages who didn't have that consistent care, they behaved completely differently. They ignored the blocks,
You could see the anxiety, they were breathing heavily, just fearfully watching the adults. And it revealed this profound truth. If we don't get that emotional security early on, it can literally crush our natural sense of curiosity and joy for life. Okay, so we've seen how bullying, societal pressure, and a lack of care can install these handbrakes in our lives, holding us back when we don't even know it. So the big question is, how in the world do we finally release them and start moving forward at full speed?
Well, the solution can actually be broken down into a pretty simple but really powerful three-step framework. We call it the 3 R's of healing. This is the process for taking back control. The 3 steps are simple: realize, release, and rewire. So first, you have to become aware that the handbrake is even on. Then you have to let go of all that built-up pressure. And finally, you retrain your brain to drive in a whole new way. Let's break down each one.
Step 1 is realize. Awareness is the beginning of any real change. So start by just noticing where you might overreact. For instance, do you feel this intense, totally out of proportion fear of making a mistake at work? Or maybe you notice repeating patterns in your life. Do you always seem to end up in relationships where the other person is super dominant? Once you spot a pattern, just ask yourself, why? Try to connect it to your past. Maybe that fear of making a choice comes from parents who always said, nope, we know what's best, and never let you have an opinion. Or maybe that jealousy you feel comes from a teacher who is always comparing you to the star student. Just making that connection, that's a huge first step. Okay, next up is step 2, release. All of those emotions you've pushed down, the fear, the anger, the shame, they're like a soda bottle that's been shaken up for years and years. You have to uncork it. And this doesn't have to be some big, complicated thing. You could write a letter to someone who hurt you, a letter you never ever send. You could talk it out with a friend you trust or a therapist. You could even just turn on the voice recorder on your phone and just talk. Or you could just let yourself have a good cry. Honestly, the method doesn't matter as much as the act of just letting that pressure out.
And this brings us to the final, and I think the most powerful step of all. Once you've seen the pattern and you've released the emotion, it's time to actively change your brain's programming for the future. Let's try a quick experiment. Right now, just close your eyes for a second and think of an apple. What color is it? I'm going to bet you thought of a red apple. That's your brain's default setting, right? It's been trained by years of seeing red apples. But now, in your mind, make that apple black. You can do it, can't you? See? You just consciously chose a new thought. You overrode the default. That right there is rewiring.
So here's how you apply this to your life. Let's say your old wiring, the program that got installed when you were a kid, tells you that making a mistake means you're going to be punished or lose love. Your job is to consciously create a new pathway. Every single time you mess up, you intentionally tell yourself, a mistake doesn't mean I'm a failure, it just means I'm learning something.
Here's another really common one. Maybe your old wiring says that when you see someone else succeed, it's a reason to feel jealous or bad about yourself. You can actively decide to rewire that. Intentionally choose to believe that from now on, someone else's success isn't a threat to you. It's inspiration. It's proof of what's possible for you too. You are literally, consciously updating your internal programming.
And look, this isn't just some wishful thinking stuff. This is actual neuroscience. Every time you consciously choose a new thought, you strengthen a new pathway in your brain. And the more you practice, the stronger it gets, until it becomes the new default. You can speed this up with some practical exercises. Mirror work isn't about vanity. It's about training yourself to look at yourself with compassion. Visualization is like mentally rehearsing success. It builds the same neurocircuits as actually doing it. Affirmations? They're like reps at the gym for your brain, strengthening those new beliefs. And finally, and this is a big one, curate your environment. The social media you scroll, the books you read, the people you hang out with, they are all programming you. So choose inputs that build the new you, not the ones that reinforce the old one.
I want to share a personal example just to show you how this really works. For years, whenever I was driving and I'd see a police car, my legs would start shaking and my breath would get all short. And logically, it made zero sense. My papers are always in order. I've never done anything illegal. So I started the 3R process. I realized the pattern. I traced it all the way back to this really traumatic family experience from my childhood where police played a very negative role, and it created this deep-seated fear. Then I started to release it. My wife would help me in the moment, saying, "What's the absolute worst that can happen? Nothing." And finally, I started to rewire. I would tell myself, I am safe. I have done nothing wrong. I will face this with confidence. And you know what? It took time, but that automatic physical reaction, it's gone, because I consciously reprogrammed it.
Ultimately, healing these old wounds really comes down to a fundamental shift in how you relate to yourself. For way too long, you've probably had this inner judge criticizing your every move. It is time to fire that judge. And it's time to hire an inner coach, one that understands your past, encourages you in the present, and helps you build a much better future.
Look, your past experiences might have written your initial code. They created the bugs and the handbrakes that are holding you back. But you are not a robot. You have the power to debug, to update, and to rewrite your own programming. The keyboard is in your hands.